Hey, welcome to a new episode. Today you probably join me on the highlight of the Texas trip that we've had here for the last couple of days. It took us about 5 hours to come up from Houston all the way here to Dallas, but it's a trip I really needed to make because we are at T1 Race Development today, just outside of Dallas. And it's a shop that I've followed through the years as they kind of establish themselves as, the go-to place for, hardcore R35 drag and high-speed setups, especially drag. And this is actually the place I bought my ID injectors from. So Injector Dynamics are a sub-brand of T1. They do the Bosch Motorsport injector kits, all match from Bosch, and basically they supply kits that fit cars like the RB26 or Skyline GT-R. It's a pleasure to be here. I mean, these guys do amazing work. We just met with Tony Palo, the man behind the operation, who's been involved in racing, pretty much through his entire, adult days, starting in high school doing Hondas and stuff, and then in 2011, kind of moving onto the R35 scene, kind of owning that. Let's head inside and take a look. Okay, so we're here with Tony, and I'm just blown away by your shop. Like, the setup is even more incredible than I thought, like after following you for so many years online. Can you just quickly run us through, how you started and how you've progressed into what you're doing today?
Yeah, so early on I was doing Honda drag race stuff. So building engines, fabrication, wiring, tuning, whatever. Started this in 2005, continued doing the Honda stuff because I already had a name in that market and had people that knew me. But early on, you kind of take whatever walks through the door. So we're doing some unique stuff here and there, some local stuff, whatever. I was drag racing an Acura Integra. In 2008, we were the first front-wheel drive street car to run an 8-second pass on an 891.
Okay.
And that continued for a few more years after that. And then in 2010, I bought my first GT-R. And I literally had no intentions of modifying it at all. Not even kidding. I drove it home from the dealership and I was like, this thing's perfect. I'm not going to touch it. So that didn't last.
That didn't last long.
But I had the GT-R because I thought it was a cool car. I just wanted it to drive it. We were still working on Honda stuff. And slowly people started asking, do you work on GT-Rs? I'm like, I mean, yeah, we can. They're all cars, right? There's things to learn and things to get familiar with. But at the end of the day, if you can work on one of these, you can work on another one.
Sure.
So GT-R work started coming in. It didn't take long to realize that was a better market for business than the Honda market was for me. So we started working on GT-Rs in 2010 to 11. And then by 2012, we were exclusively doing the R35 platform. And so we did that for about 10 years exclusively. And a lot of the cars you see here are pretty extreme race cars that have been through many revisions and stages along the way. And anybody who's worked with a shop or had a project car has dealt with good shops, has dealt with bad shops, has been burned. We have a great group of clients that are happy with the performance they get, and so they keep going further and further with the GT-R because that was the only platform we worked on. And so,
just to give us an idea, like you're speaking of evolution, but like when you started, what were you looking at time-wise, and then how did that progress? Because numbers you pulled out earlier on were kind of blowing me.
Well, when I started, I don't think anybody had run a 9-second pass yet.
Right.
With a GT-R.
Yeah.
And now our fastest one runs a 6.5.
Yeah.
So yeah, power's gone from 750, 800 used to be a huge deal, and now 3,000 plus is a huge deal.
That's insane.
Yeah, so it's shifted a little bit. And then a couple years ago, we started to get into the V10 platform with Audi R8 and Lamborghini Huracan. So we've been doing a lot more of those lately. The GT-Rs that we're working on have been pretty extreme race projects for the most part, and the V10s are getting there quickly.
Have you kind of reached the plateau with the VR? Do you think you're pretty much at the end of the road?
It's getting hard. It's getting hard, and I mean, we're making over 3,000 horsepower. And they'll do it, but we're still dealing with a crank that was the size that barely clears in a Nissan casting block. So I mean, it's not like you can just make the crank bigger to support more power because there's no room for it. So the VR platform is getting hard to go further with reliably. We are working with some stuff in the future with Elmer Racing out of Finland with a 5-liter from scratch VR38 replacement, and that one being designed around its end goals. Hopefully we'll have a little more reliability at the bigger power levels.
So this is the main workshop. And you know, it always blows my mind just the amount of space that shops have in the US. I'm used to, you know, Japanese-sized workshops, and this is just like a hangar basically. So this is what T1 is basically known for, these insane, wild drag R35 setups with turbos pretty much mounted right in front of the car. They make a one-piece cowl that basically covers up. It's one piece with the fenders, the bumper, and the hood, so that once they pull it, they have full access to the entire front end of the car. So as you can see, there's a big charge cooler here, and everything is so well fabricated and arranged and positioned. It is literally a work of art. See all the sensors running in and out of the engine. This is a fully fledged drag car, of course. Roll cage and everything, twin parachute setup. I love the fact that it runs T37s, front and back. P275s, 45R18, Race Masters. Absolutely incredible. Pretty crazy. It's still running the stock Bilstein, and it's got KW sleeving with the adjustability in there. Full roll cage. But can you maybe like run us through what an engine setup like this will kind of entail, because it's a lot to take in and digest here.
So this car has gone 660 at 228 miles per hour with previous owner. It is the identical setup as it was then, but it's gone down to 68 millimeter turbos now to run in a 68 millimeter turbo class. This starts out with a AMS billet block. We run our rotating assembly. It's 4.3 liters now. They're still factory cast heads, ported with all the valve train and whatnot. Intake manifold, big turbo system. We put the turbos up front. This helps them get some ram air effect at high speed. And these 68 millimeter turbos, they're precision 6885s. They'll make, without the ram air like this, we've seen about 72 pounds of boost out of them. I expect 75 plus out of this one.
Right.
So I'd like to see 680s or so out of this car with these turbos. At this level, this will be 2,800 horsepower. Yeah. We go to methanol for the fuel. It's the only fuel that really has the knock resistance for this kind of boost level and power.
Right. And transmission-wise, you're still using the Getrag?
Yep. Still has a GR6 trans, still all-wheel drive. Everything in the trans is upgraded, but it's still a factory working assembly.
Yeah. Amazing. And if we kind of step it up over here, this usually runs bigger turbos, right?
Yeah, so that car was 68 millimeter. This car runs 80 millimeter turbos. For the most part, the turbo and engine and transmission setup is the same between the both.
Right.
You know, very small differences, but the power difference between this car and that car will be from the turbo size difference. So from a 68 to an 80. Yeah. This one will make a little bit over 90 pounds of boost.
And of course, the R8s. This is something that really interests me quite a lot. Like this is one that's being put together right now, but just look at that setup. Look at the turbo setup in the back here. So this is good for 2,200 or 2,300 horsepower, complete package. So that includes the engine, the transmission modifications, everything needed for the complete conversion. One thing that really impressed me is that they're still running the stock coils. Apparently there's no issue with the stock coils, which blows my mind. Yeah, I can't even imagine what this might feel like out on the street. Again, just look how well everything is arranged. from the K&N filter into the massive turbos and back down into this treated exhaust outlet. The one outside actually had 2 outlets next to the number plate. One is being worked on right now, so it's missing the transaxle and the turbo setup. Over here, some billet end caps for the intercoolers. And as we kind of transition towards the new platform here,
So
you have a great example here on the silver car.
yeah, so we started off doing these with the factory engine and pushing the stock engine further and further. We're at a point where our stock engine packages will make 14 to 1500 horsepower pretty reliably. And then once you step it up and build the motor and trans, that's what this car is here. This one will make 22 to 2300 horsepower. And this car, as it sits here right now with street legal tires and all the interior and the AC, nothing's removed for weight, will run a mid 7-second pass at about 200 miles an hour in the quarter.
That's absolutely insane. And you basically keep it stock looking. I mean, you don't really fiddle around with the overall design of the car.
Yeah, it's up to the customer what they want cosmetically, but the reality is wheels are all these things need.
Yeah.
So.
And yeah, it's got impact, that's for sure. But it's almost a pity to kind of hide it away with the bumper.
I know, it's a shame. Once you put the bumper on, you put all the panels on, you can see the intake manifold,
Yeah.
the side panels cover anything that's going on there. So you see the intake and about this much of the intercooler.
Yeah.
That's why you see so many people running around with the bumpers off.
Staying with the whole V10 side of things, this is one of their customer cars. This is a Huracan STO that they're doing a twin turbo conversion on. Of course, this being rear-wheel drive only, they've actually gone for a smaller turbo setup. So in the 1200 horsepower range, as Tony was telling me, which is still a lot of power for a rear-wheel drive car. So incredible, like that, they're doing these sort of conversions to special versions like the STO, and the customers actually request this stuff. Absolutely incredible. And the color on this thing, this is a stock blue, but it's got this really incredible depth to it, kind of like a candy blue. And here's another R8 that's being worked on. It's a Race VR38 and a more street tuned setup for this 35 here on Advan RGs. Interesting carbon rear wing here. So yeah, but I think 1200 you were saying for this one. So you can actually see the one-piece front cowl that has come off the drag car over there. Of course, very light. And it has the cutouts here for the side exit exhaust. And next to it is another crazy customer drag car. This is actually without turbos right now. They're waiting for the new set to arrive, but you can see here and there where they bolt on. Kind of similar setup to that one over there, where it has the charge cooler here. You fill it up with ice, and you can see how the manifolds extend into the wastegate and then power the turbos on in there. This dumps into the exhaust. So the exhaust on this one actually come out through the hood. That's the Motec PDM up there. All these cars run a Motec M1 system. And T37s for this one too, SLs. And one really cool thing is, so Tony actually collaborated with the designer that designed the original stock GT-R rear wing and created a passive active aero. So it's a passive system in that drag basically pushes the wing down. I'm not going to try and do that now, but basically it's creating as much downforce as possible as the car gets into about, what, second, third gear, and then kind of rakes up or rakes down to allow for less drag and all the power to be unleashed. Here's another sick R35 build. Love these cars in red. And this particular one is actually from Hawaii on actual drag tires, Mickey Thompson's. Another R35 here. So this is actually owned by the wife of the guy that owns this one here. And this is running the same passive system here for the spoiler. Only 4 have been made. And over here, an Huracan Evo with an insane turbo setup. Oh man, that is unbelievably cool. So massive Garrett turbos, Turbo Smart external wastegates that dump into that really short pipe that you call an exhaust, I guess. This must sound absolutely insane. So of course, with all these kits, all these turbo kits, the package includes the engine, the bottom end, all the work needed for the engine, of course the rebuilt transmission and all the clutch packs. So you know, you're getting something extremely reliable. All right, we'll take a step into the next workshop up here. So this is where their mainline hub dyno is set up. So he's playing around with it. The car actually runs aftermarket turbos, and he's just getting things dialed in. And he actually was doing a power check today, and he's left the number here so we can actually see the result. So this managed a 986.4 horsepower to the hubs, past 627 pound-feet of torque. That will be fun. Considering the car is rear-wheel drive, that's going to be a handful. It makes total sense. And there's another cool car you have in there. Can you maybe talk us through the McLaren that you have on the dyno? Yeah.
So occasionally we have a client that has another car that they want to do some light modifications on. At the level that we are with the GT-R, you have to know a lot about the platform and the engine and transmission, and to be able to provide a product on that level that doesn't fall apart. Yeah. This car, client bought it with upgraded turbos on it and just some bolt-ons, so intake and exhaust. We work with M Engineering on the tuning. It's got a flex fuel setup that we're about to release that we developed on this car. And this car made 986 at the wheels on the stock engine on race gas. So we did a 93 octane tune, a race gas tune, and then we're going to do an ethanol tune. The ethanol tune will be limited to a little bit less power than that, but the primary goal for this is road racing, and he wants the benefits of it running cooler on the ethanol. So he's not going to need that much power. If he wants it, he can put the race gas in and turn it up to that map, but it'll probably make a 5900 on the ethanol map and run cooler and be plenty safe on the road course.
You use a Motec system on this as well?
No, this one's a factory ECU.
Factory ECU.
So M Engineering out of...
so they're able to get in there. And,
yeah.
And then there's this hiding.
So yeah, we didn't. You didn't see that one. This is George's other car.
Okay.
So this one is basically an identical engine and turbo setup to that one. Yeah. Except this one's rear-wheel drive with a TH400 automatic transmission in it. It's full tube chassis and a very large tire.
Oh yeah, there's the transmission.
So this is a, I had to learn a lot with this one. Being an import guy my whole life, I've never raced something with an automatic transmission. Yeah. If you look at any Pro Mod, almost all of them are running this type of transmission, but I have no tuning experience with it. And there's a lot going on, and they're different from automatics of the old days with dump valves and all these things to manipulate fluid and pressure to the converter. So we had some issues early on with this one that something wasn't working right, but I didn't know that it wasn't right. I thought that's just how they were. So we were chasing the problem incorrectly. Finally figured out what was going on, fixed that, and now the car acts completely different. So I don't have any, it's gone 683 at 223 the first time we took it out. And it had a lot less power then. But this thing should be very, very low sixes or high fives once we get that sorted.
That's amazing. Ton of fun. Over here is where they do alignments, so including, as Tony was explaining, basically when you drop the engine and the whole subframe and the 35, you need to realign stuff once it goes back in. So they've gone ahead and invested in that entire setup so they can do everything in-house. Right here is another of their insane drag cars. So this would be a 6-second car. Incredible. Night Terror. So this has proper drag transmission. This is in all effect a pipe frame car built for one thing only, a quarter mile. I love kind of having a look around all the engine blocks and heads, and got even a twin turbo kit down here, and so many wheels and tires. And over here is the external storage. So this is where some other customer cars are stored while either the engine is out being worked on, or people are awaiting parts, or maybe cars come from other areas of the country. Tons and tons of tires up there, wheels and tires. Another R8, one up there as well, and Lamborghini Huracan. So yeah, this particular Huracan, of course, has the engine out, waiting for parts, so it's currently sitting here. You see the tires that it runs. As I was being told, like even with a 2,200 horsepower setup, they drive like stock, and of course they're a bit louder and a bit kind of like, you can feel it through the chassis that it has a lot more power, but they're really reliable and totally usable. I'm really surprised nobody's doing this kind of stuff in Japan yet. Mind you, Texas does have the space. And this is the fabrication area where stuff gets welded up. There are 2 workbenches here, and stuff gets prepared as it's needed with the various builds going on any given day. So with the T1 being one of the biggest Motec distributors in the world, it's no surprise seeing so many of the ECUs ready to be installed into the Huracan, as the name suggests here. So this is basically the plug-and-play unit that Motec has developed for the Huracan. Of course, Motec does all their systems for the Trofeo as well. So they know these cars inside out, and therefore are able to create these amazing packages that allow tuners like T1 to control everything and anything in the car to maximize performance and control. So of course, there's always plenty of trophies, and Tony was saying how the TX2K event actually has to get moved because they closed one of the venues, I believe, in Texas. And a story from D-Sport, 2009 Nissan GT-R. So this is from 2013. 10 years ago, already 2,160. This is where all the wiring gets taken care of. You can see like random sensors and little wiring looms being created. And
it's funny, after looking at all the big turbos on everything, and then we come over here to this and they look like little toys.
But there's a reason for that.
Yeah, so this one is built just for road racing. So being rear wheel drive, we don't know how much power it'll ultimately be able to take, but 600 wasn't enough. Yeah. So putting our base turbo kit on this one, we'll turn it up to 12 or 1300 and have that available.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what it takes on the track. The way the power management is on these with the Motec, it's all torque based, and so we can limit torque in each gear, which at the end of the day, whatever your reason for limiting power is, whether it's strength of the engine, strength of the gearbox, or traction, it all boils down to torque, not horsepower, right? So your typical torque curve comes up and it's going to fall down. Well, if you could take this part then you could take it up here too. And if you keep torque flat, you'll make a lot more horsepower.
Yeah.
So the way the torque management works on these, it really helps optimize acceleration. So I think we'll be able to make it work really good on a road course.
And is there any difference to the transmission from four-wheel drive to two-wheel drive?
There's a couple pieces that are missing.
Right. But it's not any
to drive the
weaker.
front, but no, it's the same gear ratios, same
Right.
clutch, all that stuff. So
Got it.
yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for showing us this insane setup. You're getting me really interested in these Audis and the whole V10 setup. You really get to see the size of the turbo there.
So this one is G42 1200, so it's 73 millimeter compressor inducer. And then our smaller kit is 68 with Zona turbos.
This would be good for how much power?
2300.
2300. So it's the same as the
Yep.
the silver car.
Yep.
Amazing. So there you have it. I am over the moon that I got to visit T1 Developments. I mean, it's been a shop that I've followed for so long, and just seeing how they push the VR to pretty much stratospheric limits and seeing the move into the R8 V10 platform. It's just really cool to see that there's a progression there. You know, we don't really know how the whole GT-R world is going to evolve with the new car, if that's even coming or not. But, you know, to hear that they're actually pushing the whole GT-R VR setup with a 5-liter setup coming from Finland, that's going to boost the whole, you know, potential speed of these cars even further. And then seeing them diversify and do V10s, absolutely incredible. It's really an eye-opener to see how power is approached here in the States, especially here in Texas where there's so much space. Big thanks to Tony and his team for allowing us to just, you know, roam free around the shops and around the customer cars and taking a look at everything in detail. So really happy I came to visit. I hope you enjoyed this really special tour. Check back soon for more. There'll be more stuff from Japan coming up soon.